So hey there everyone, we're going to start now. Please turn your attention to the tab in your browser which is speaking to you. The theme of this month's webinar is how global enterprises protect their brand using SketchDeck. And your time is valuable. This is a 20-minute presentation. I believe I had booked for a bit longer on accident, but I'm going to be very respectful of your time today. If you have any questions or comments, just drop them in your screen at any time, and I will answer them at the end. So let's get started. Before we dive in, I just want to take 2 minutes and start with some short intros and talk about why we're all here. So my name is Max Caldwell. I run marketing here at SketchDeck. And if you're not familiar, SketchDeck is the fastest way for you to get day-to-day visual design. And sometimes you can also find me talking about marketing or the tech biz online. Now I'm in the unique position of both running marketing and also seeing a lot of projects and data come through about marketing design. And so the view I'm presenting today is informed both by my experiences with clients and also trying to protect our own brand. And so joining us today are marketers from companies that are pictured here on the slide. And thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you joining us today. It seems like you're all doing really exciting work. And I believe that what we're covering here today will add some value. And so let me get a little bit more specific then about the data that we're drawing on to create this presentation. Now, SketchDeck's whole reason for existence is making on-brand design happen for our clients 100% of the time. And so here's a small selection of the work we do just to demonstrate the quality. But we really are drawing on a lot of data here. And so over the last 3 years, we've completed more than 1,200 design projects across 290 accounts, and that's growing all the time. So our clients range from startups, where we just support a handful of people, all the way up to Fortune 500 companies, where we're supporting the day-to-day needs of entire business units. And you can see some of those people pictured here in this kind of typical logo slide. But jumping directly into the subject then, why talk about protecting your brand? Well, the key is that all brands start with great ideas. But it's really the implementation that counts. And so brand maintenance and protection means controlling your brand on a collateral level. And you really have to have this core idea of what your company should be. But if you can't get that into reality, then that leads to bad implementation, which is bad design, and at the end of the day, that's bad impressions that your customers or potential customers are getting from your company. Now that's just a definition. It's a bit abstract. Let's see that in action on the next slide. And so this chart is intended to demonstrate what I mean. The y-axis is the quality of the design that your company is putting out there right now. The x-axis is the time, and that acceptable brand standard line means at any point in time, you don't want the quality of your design to dip below that line, otherwise it's not acceptable. So when you go through this kind of branding exercise of creating a brand for your company or rebranding your company, typically the output of that is a brand book, which is the specs that your brand is supposed to follow. But rarely is there a solid plan in place for how to maintain your new awesome brand out there in the real world. And so the collateral your team actually delivers starts to look further and further away from your goals. And so here's what actually happens. Quality dips quickly. It never reaches that initial kind of pristine state that it started out in. And for a time, the design quality at the bottom here actually falls below the acceptable brand standard. And so the reaction to that by executives is another expensive rebrand exercise, and the cycle repeats itself because, again, there's no plan put into place. But it doesn't have to be like that. And so here's what happens to the quality and frequency of rebrands if you do have that brand maintenance plan in place. After the brand's set up, the collateral closely matches your brand book specs. And sometimes when we work with clients, we even make updates to the brand book so that it continues to match reality as time moves on. Now, because the heart of your brand is working well with the implementation, you skip out on the big swings in quality that the original section had, and the lifespan of your whole brand is increased. Maybe at the end of a couple of years, you still do need to do some kind of rebrand to keep up with changes in how your company operates, but it's nowhere near the magnitude. And so you look better in front of customers, and you save on cost. Now, we're not the only ones saying this. Other research does show that the brand implementation is essential. And so this is another chart. The x-axis is how cohesive a brand was during this years of 2012 to 2015. And the y-axis represents revenue growth during the same time period. And so I think oftentimes when we're talking about branding, it can be a bit fuzzy. People ask where the value is. But here's research that demonstrates a clear positive correlation with consistency of branding and revenue growth. Now, correlation is not causation, but I think looking at it through the lens of quality and this model that I've just proposed, it does make sense and lines up with client examples from what I've seen here at SketchDeck. So there is money in getting your brand to be on brand 100% of the time. But let's look at some examples of what a well-maintained brand actually is and then what it isn't. So this is cool. This is a recent example from Ford. I think it's this past September. And it's in response to Saudi Arabia eliminating its ban on women driving. And I think it's a really cool ad. It sends home the message that Ford is here to help women drivers in the transition. It really reinforces their brand's personality, and it was developed quickly. Because you can't build these sudden transitions in how the world works and how a country's legal system works into your marketing brand. So this is very much in the random acts of marketing category. But with global events and communication moving faster than ever, there's going to be more and more of these opportunities to step up and make a really good impression in a way that doesn't necessarily fit into a preset marketing calendar. But even large companies with a lot of resources and great brands are struggling to get this right. And so here's 3 examples from Salesforce in the top left, Chase Bank, and then IBM at the very bottom. Not having a brand maintenance and protection process in place means that this is what makes an impression on their customers. And I don't mean to pick on them too hard. They really do have excellent brands that I respect personally. The design process just fell short on these examples. So what's the situation in these businesses that's causing these issues? Well, the key here is that there's 2 different categories of design in a business, and that's not often recognized. And so at the top of the chart here, we have the stuff that everyone thinks about when they think about design, but it really doesn't get touched very often. And then below that, kind of below the gap, is the stuff that really nobody thinks about, but everyone touches every single day, and that's what's missing from brand implementations. Because the first category has a ton of really smart agencies dedicated to making large ad campaigns work, getting your rebrand correct. There's a lot of coverage in this area. But the second category doesn't have a ton of dedicated resources, and so instead they're farmed out to a variety of solutions. And no single one of these really solves the problem, and so there's a big mismatch in the types of projects that a company can get done and the kind of stuff that's needed to maintain the brand in the way we discussed. And so these solutions are inadequate. But how's that even possible? Because there's a ton of really smart people out there working in these companies to make their brand successful. And so what's causing this mismatch? Now, we can break it down into 3 categories. The first is the individual challenges that people face. And I often talk to people who are using a bunch of different resources, but none of them meet their needs. And so the solutions they have in place just don't get back to their day-to-day design in the time needed to make that impact. Now, think back to that Ford ad. If that hadn't been released in a timely manner, it just wouldn't have landed. And when the people I talk to are able to get their project back, they often talk about how frustrated they are with domain knowledge and the lack of structure and just the overall process inherent in the design when working with traditional design services. And that's compounded because everyone works in different ways, and it's hard to get right, especially when you're working across different vendors. So everybody might be doing something different. And then that's the same thing on a team level, where access to resources are limited and expensive. And so that's either because usually there's one person who acts as this go-between that all the projects have to be routed through, and that causes delays and confusion, or it's because the team doesn't have good communication about what resources are even available in the first place. And so, as it is today, almost all design resources are optimized for this creativity, and especially with this huge emphasis on flagship projects. Taking that kind of resource and applying it to a sales presentation has a super low ROI, and so it doesn't happen very often in this kind of team setting. Now, these challenges go all the way up to the C-suite, and these executives then feel like there's a lack of visibility into and control over what's going out of their company. And the common response then is to go back to that first slide, initiate a rebranding process, but as we know, that doesn't always help the problem. And so they need control over the stuff that's getting out in front of customers, but they don't have it. And so when they try to get the traditional design resources that they have in place already to cover all their collateral needs, it's not able to scale. And then that builds up a patchwork of vendors, which just reinforces the consistency problem that I've been talking about this whole time. And so that ends up important things fall through the cracks, and non-designers spend time creating designs that end up in front of customers. It's a bad situation. And so if you take these three levels of challenges, the individual, the team, the organization, mix them all up, and what you get is a bad design, bad brand in front of customers, and your team spending hours doing design when they should be doing their jobs and making the company a better place. And it's not an easy thing to fix in-house. I'm going to talk about one potential solution here, which is SketchDeck. But before working with us, our clients had all of these issues that we've discussed here. They saw the inconsistent design they were putting out and identified the brand maintenance gap, and then tried piecing together their own solutions, but it didn't work, so they came to us. And what we've done is we perfected a process that really works, and it enables full brand compliance across your entire org while you're still able to get design super fast. And so this final section goes into detail about how it all comes together to make brand protection work. Just a quick reminder, drop any questions you have in the box on your screen for me to pick up at the end. It does look like we've had a couple come through, so submit it, and if we run out of time, I'll send out answers via email. So here's an overview of the solution. We use a combination of technology and teams to make design happen at scale within companies. So starting at the top left, the platform means that anybody on your team can access design with no bottlenecks whatsoever. And it also removes all of that domain expertise that people often need to start projects and give feedback, and makes it just super easy. The second is the process. So we apply the same steps to every single design that comes through our doors. And by taking that design project and reducing it into a small number of repeatable steps, we can significantly save on costs and provide predictable deadlines. So then we match that up with our design team. That's the third thing. And that's a really talented group of people we set aside and train on our partner's brand. By resourcing that team correctly, we handle any project you need and stay up to date with the brand specs while meeting those deadlines. And then finally, we've got the account team. So This group of people is held accountable to make sure that all the brand is maintained and protected over the longer term. They make sure that all this is lined up that produces the results you're looking for in your business. To get into a bit more detail, this is how the account and design teams are structured. And so on the top, the account team has an account manager, and they're responsible for helping you to manage your project pipeline and to achieve your business goals. The project quality manager looks at each project that you send through and make sure that it's hitting the requirements laid out in the specs from your brand book, and that we're sending all the deliverables on time. And then finally up there, the design director is a senior designer who reviews all creative and is well trained on your brand. And it's their job to ensure that we are always pushing to elevate your designs and make sure that we're finding the best design solutions possible. So working with them then is the design team. And our partners are paired with designers who have a variety of skills. No two partnerships look exactly alike, and this is just one example. So this team is assembled depending on the specific requirements needed in each business situation. We could swap out the illustrator for an email designer, for example, and it wouldn't make a difference. If you have questions about the specific things we do or do not handle that you'd like to know about, just drop them in the questions. So this team you've just seen lives and works wherever you need them. And that means we can support your brand across any time zone, or come up and speed delivery up with extra capacity for specific events when you need it. And that's across everything you need. So the teams focus mostly on day-to-day design that actually shows up in front of clients. Here's a sampling of the most popular project types that we work on, and this is sorted by order of frequency. And these are the most frequent requests that we get from clients and what we spend most of our days getting done. But if you can think of it, and it's visual design, we can probably help with that too. We worked on all kinds of different things, not just presentations and infographics. The result of lining all this up is that we're able to work to maintain your brand. And so this is a core part of our service. Basically, we go through the cycle of setting business goals, bringing fresh brand ideas back to the table, and then incorporating those into your day-to-day collateral. And so that way your brand lives a full and happy life, we hit your business goals, and it never slips below that acceptable brand standard line that you want for your brand. And so, to sum it up, SketchDeck protects and maintains your brand, however and wherever that is for you. That means better design, which in turn leads to better customer impressions, and your team spending all of that extra time actually doing the work that you hired them to do. And so, at the end of the day, that means a better ROI on your marketing for the company you work for. And I can vouch for this personally. I do all of my marketing through SketchDeck, all of my marketing design. This presentation was designed by SketchDeck, and it's been really a wonderful impact. So really thank you for your time. Let's go over some of the questions that you submitted during the presentation, during the time you have left. I'll just pause for a second here if you guys want to put any more in while I read through these. Okay, cool. So there was two questions that I have here then. If you have anything else, let me know. And thanks Aurelia for the heads up on the sound there. I hope we didn't lose too much. But the first question that I got through was specifically, are you able to create Facebook ads? And the answer is yes. We are able to create Facebook ads. We generally are able to create ads across pretty much any different network. There's even a couple clients that have specific ad spec sizes that we create for them. So, if there's a specific project you're working on, please let us know. We can generally make it happen. But yes, we create Facebook ads all day, every day. And then how fast is your design turnaround time is a second question. And That really depends on a project by project basis. And there's two factors that go into that. And so the first one is a level of creativity that you're looking for on this project. So if you only have a very rough idea of what you need done, or the content is not final, whatever the issue is, if it's very early in the project and you need a much more creative mind brought to the project, it's going to take longer to finish. On the flip side of that, if it's very close to completion and you just need a bit of production design on it, we can get that done very, very fast. And I don't want to make any specific hour promises on this call because the project managers will get mad at me. But we are able to turn things around at the time that you would expect a short presentation to be done. And we often find our clients coming back to us and saying that the number one thing they value about us is the speed of turnaround. So it's quite fast. And that's it. Were there any other questions you guys had? Okay. Well, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm going to send out the slides and recording after the call, and a short little feedback survey if you have any questions. So thank you for your time.